This is the tragic story of STARS, a team created to protect Raccoon City from the unimaginable, and ironically, the same team that would be the first to discover the sinister truth behind it all. In the early 1990s, Raccoon City was booming. The city was expanding, businesses were growing, and Umbrella Pharmaceuticals had turned the region into an economic powerhouse. On the surface, Raccoon City looked like a model American success story, but beneath that polished image, crime was rising fast. The 80s and early 90s saw an increase in violent incidents, organized crime, and most concerning of all, the growing threat of domestic terrorism. The Raccoon Police Department simply wasn't equipped for this new era of threats. They lacked funding, manpower, and specialized training. Traditional policing wasn't enough anymore, and that's when the city officials knew that something had to change. So in 1996, Mayor Michael Warren announced a new initiative under his Bright Raccoon 21 urban redevelopment campaign. The idea was to modernize Raccoon City and strengthen its infrastructure, including its law enforcement capabilities. And that's where STARS was born, or Special Tactics and Rescue Service, an elite tactical unit designed to handle high-risk operations, including bioterrorism, hostage situations, bomb threats, chemical hazards, and anything beyond the scope of regular police work. But here's the detail that changes everything. STARS wasn't funded by taxpayer money, but with private corporations instead, and the largest contributor was Umbrella. Umbrella USA was the biggest employer in the country, practically the backbone of Raccoon City's economy. Their financial support made STARS possible. On paper, it looked like corporate goodwill, but in reality, it gave growth to Umbrella's influence, control, and access. From the very beginning, STARS was entangled with the very company that would later destroy the city. STARS unit itself was small but elite, only 12 members total, prioritizing quality over quantity. They were divided into two 6-person teams, Alpha Team and Bravo Team. Bravo Team was led by Enrico Marini. As a battle-hardened veteran, Enrico was known for his impervious mental strength and elite survival skills. Calm, disciplined, and dependable, he was the steady backbone of Bravo Team when things got dangerous. The team consisted of 5 other members, with the first being Rebecca Chambers, a rookie prodigy who served as the unit's medic thanks to her deep knowledge in biochemistry. Young but brilliant, she proved that intelligence could be just as vital as firepower. Richard Eichen was Bravo Team's communication expert, acting as the guy keeping everyone connected when things went south. He was friendly, upbeat, and stayed calm under pressure, even when the situation was anything but. Edward Dewey was the team's rear security specialist. He was a tall, sharp-eyed marksman and licensed helicopter pilot. Off-duty, he was known for loving to dance, showing a lighter side behind the uniform. Forrest Spire was the team's marksman and cyber security specialist. He brought a military background and a calm, tactical mindset to STARS. He was the kind of operator who could handle both a rifle and a terminal under pressure. And lastly, Dr. Kenneth J. Sullivan acted as the point man and recon specialist. He combined field awareness and his background in chemistry. Quiet and serious on the surface, he was known to have a surprisingly gentle side. The other division, Alpha Team, was led by Albert Wesker, a man who appeared calm, calculated, and always in control. But behind the scenes, he was secretly pulling strings for Umbrella, turning STARS into pawns in a much bigger experiment. The other 5 members include Barry Burton, the team's backup man and weapons specialist. Barry was the guy making sure everyone stayed armed and alive. Joseph Frost was the team's scout, and was recognizable by his red bandana and his fiery, hot-blooded attitude. Energetic and upbeat, he brought morale to the team, even when things got dangerous. Brad Vickers wasn't known as a frontline fighter, and there's no record of prior combat experience before STARS. He served mainly as the team's pilot and support specialist, the guy behind the controls when missions went south. Jill Valentine, an Army veteran, became the only woman on Wesker's Alpha Team, serving as their breaking and entering specialist. Calm under pressure, she typically covered the rear alongside pilot Brad Vickers during operations. Chris Redfield was appointed Alpha Team's point man, and his versatile mastery of firearms quickly made him the unit's top marksman. As a trophy-winning shooter at RPD competitions, he often acted on instinct, but his results were hard to argue with. And that was STARS Team. On paper, they were the best Raccoon City had to offer. Handpicked specialists, veterans, sharpshooters, medics, and pilots. A unit built to handle the worst case scenarios no ordinary police force could survive. They were meant to be the city's shield, but what no one realized is that Umbrella wasn't just funding a defense force. They were positioning pieces on a chessboard, and STARS had no idea they were about to be sent straight into a nightmare they were never meant to survive. By May of 1998, something had already gone terribly wrong in the Arklay Mountains. Hidden deep within the forest sat the Arklay Laboratory, a secret Umbrella Corporation research facility experimenting with bioweapons and viral strains far beyond anything the public knew existed. And inside those walls, an experimental strain of the T-virus was quietly spiraling out of control. At first, it was contained, staff infections, medical emergencies, and internal lockdowns, but Umbrella's research relied on strict maintenance protocols and constant oversight. The moment those systems failed is exactly when the facility became a ticking time bomb. The virus spread rapidly and personnel turned on each other. Researchers were slaughtered, security teams were overwhelmed, and worst of all, the bioorganic weapons housed in the lab began to break free. What started as a lab accident turned into a massacre, as mutilated bodies began appearing all across the Arklay region. Hikers vanished, and families were found torn apart. Reports described animal attacks, but nothing matched the brutality of the scenes. For 2 months, the RPD searched for answers, but found none. No suspects, no clear motive, just a growing pile of corpses and rising public panic. With media pressure mounting and the situation escalating, Police Chief Brian Irons finally handed the case to the one unit meant for the unimaginable. But what STARS didn't know was that their mission had already been compromised, because unbeknownst to them, their own Captain Albert Wesker was working for Umbrella. Under direct orders, Wesker began preparing what Umbrella internally called X-Day. His true objective wasn't to save lives, but to enter the lab, secure viral samples, and erase all evidence of the outbreak, making sure that the truth would never come out. And to make sure there weren't any witnesses, Umbrella planned for complete eradication of STARS team during the mission. On July 23, 1998, STARS Bravo team was deployed into the Arklay Mountains, northwest of Raccoon City. Their mission was simple on paper: locate the source behind the Grizzly Mountain murders. But the moment they entered the forest, things began to fall apart. Their helicopter suffered a sudden engine failure, forcing an emergency landing deep in the wilderness, right near the Spencer mansion. What Bravo team didn't know was that the mansion was the front door to Umbrella's nightmare. Just moments after touchdown, chaos erupted. STARS officer Edward Dewey and pilot Kevin Dooley were slaughtered shortly after landing, under circumstances that immediately told the team they weren't dealing with ordinary criminals. With their pilot now dead and the helicopter unusable, Bravo team had no escape route, and now their only option was to seek shelter inside the mansion looming above them. 5 officers entered, but no one knew what waited inside. As they began to investigate, the truth slowly revealed itself. Enrico Marini discovered a hidden route leading toward Umbrella's underground facilities, where he uncovered something disturbing, being evidence suggesting Umbrella wasn't just connected to the outbreak, but they were also planning for STARS to die there. Meanwhile, Rebecca Chambers became separated from the group and stumbled onto documents detailing illegal human experimentation dating back decades. Umbrella hadn't just crossed ethical lines, they had erased them. From there, one by one, Bravo team members fell into danger. Enrico was gravely injured by hunters while exploring the cavern systems alone. Forest Spire was swarmed and infected by mutated crows on the mansion's east balcony. Panic was spreading as fast as the virus itself. Rebecca later regrouped with Richard Eichen, and together they searched the mansion for Enrico, but every hallway led them deeper into Umbrella's horrors, not answers. Bravo team had entered as investigators, but they were now survivors, and outside, Alpha team was about to be sent in next. Hours pass by, and Bravo team never checks in. Complete radio silence. By the time command realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Alpha team was mobilized to investigate their disappearance, but behind the scenes, a darker plan was already in motion. Before deployment, Albert Wesker secretly confronted Barry Burton and threatened his family, coercing him into cooperating with Umbrella's agenda. Barry was told that if he didn't help destroy evidence inside the mansion, his family would pay the price. What Barry didn't know was that this was all a lie. His family was never actually in Umbrella's hands, but the fear was too real and he couldn't take any chances. On the night of July 24th, Alpha Team arrived at Bravo Team's last known location. From the helicopter, they quickly spotted Bravo's abandoned aircraft in the forest below. Brad Vickers brought the chopper down, and the team stepped out to investigate the area. And that's when the nightmare revealed itself. The mutilated corpse of pilot Kevin Dooley was found almost immediately, torn apart in a way no human could manage. And before they could even process the scene, the forest exploded with movement. A pack of Cerberuses, infected attack dogs, burst from the trees, fast, aggressive, and relentless. Joseph Ross didn't even stand a chance. He was dragged down and torn apart within seconds. Panic spread and gunfire echoed throughout the woods, and things just kept getting worse. Brad Vickers, now shaken and terrified, took off in the helicopter, abandoning the team on the ground with no backup, no heavy weapons, and no escape. Only their sidearms remained. With death closing in, Wesker gave the only order that made sense in that moment: run. The surviving members sprinted toward the only structure nearby, being the Spencer Mansion. They thought it was a shelter, and they had no idea they were running straight into Umbrella's labyrinth of horrors. Once inside the Spencer Mansion, Alpha Team did what STARS was trained to do, and split up to search for Bravo Team and secure the building. Not long after entering, they found Bravo Team member Kenneth J. Sullivan, but they were sadly too late. A zombified researcher was already on him, tearing into his throat. For many of them, this was the first time seeing what the T-Virus had done to a human being, and sadly, it wouldn't be the last. Elsewhere in the mansion, Richard Eichen was ambushed by a massive, venomous snake later known as Yawn. This creature nearly killed him, forcing Rebecca Chambers to desperately search for anti-venom. She eventually barricaded herself in a storeroom, where Chris Redfield later found her. Then came another grim discovery. Forrest Spire had already turned. When they found him, he reanimated and attacked his own teammates, and now they had lost another friend to the virus. As chaos unfolded, Chris, Jill, and Barry continued investigating the mansion's secrets. But Barry had a hidden agenda. Under Wesker's orders, he was quietly destroying evidence whenever he found it, believing it was the only way to protect his family. Meanwhile, Enrico Marini was getting closer to the truth. He had pieced together that someone within STARS was working with Umbrella, but sadly he never got the chance to tell anyone. Wesker murdered him before he could expose the conspiracy, then shifted suspicion onto Barry to protect himself. By the early hours of July 25th, the surviving members reached the underground lab beneath the mansion, and that's when the full picture came into focus. The murders in the Arklay Mountains weren't random at all. They were the result of a viral outbreak. Umbrella knew the whole time and covered it up, and they planned to erase the entire facility, along with any surviving STARS members, to bury the evidence. And standing at the center of it all was Albert Wesker. He revealed the truth himself. He was with Umbrella, but he was also planning to betray them, intending to sell BOW samples to a third party for his own gain. And that's when he made his final move. Wesker activated the T-002 Tyrant, Umbrella's newest super soldier, but his arrogance would quickly cost him. The Tyrant immediately impaled Wesker with its claw, seemingly killing him before turning its attention to others. After a brutal fight, the team managed to bring the monster down and escape the lab. Rebecca discovered Umbrella's self-destruct system and activated it, setting the facility on a countdown to annihilation. But Wesker wasn't dead. A virus in his system had revived him, mutating and strengthening his body. Still, with no sample secured and the facility about to explode, he had no choice but to flee empty-handed. On the helipad outside, the Tyrant returned for one final confrontation, but this time, the remaining STARS members finished it for good. And just as the explosion ripped through the mansion, Brad Vickers finally returned with the helicopter. The survivors boarded and lifted off, watching the Spencer Mansion disappear in a fireball below. The mission was finally over, but little did they know the nightmare was just getting started. After escaping the Spencer mansion, Brad Vickers flew the survivors Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, and Rebecca Chambers back to the Raccoon Police Department. They were all alive, but they weren't safe. After receiving medical treatment, the team immediately began digging into Umbrella from their STARS office. They had seen the truth firsthand. They knew Umbrella was responsible and were more determined than ever to expose the corruption. But unfortunately for them, Umbrella moved faster. Within a month, the corporation used its influence to bribe Police Chief Brian Irons. Behind closed doors, deals were made, money changed hands, and STARS was quietly dismantled from the inside. Officially, the explanation was simple. Too many members had died, and the unit was no longer functional, but the reality was much darker. The Umbrella investigation was reassigned to the RPD, where it could be buried and controlled. Also, a new Raccoon SWAT unit was formed to replace STARS, effectively erasing the group's authority and purpose. And just like that, the elite team that uncovered Umbrella's crimes was silenced. What's even more telling is that the public never really knew. During the later Raccoon City outbreak, some officers and even Umbrella employees still suggested calling in STARS, unaware that the unit had already been dismantled. However, during this, Chris Redfield wasn't fooled. He suspected Chief Irons was corrupt and reported him directly to the FBI, triggering a federal investigation into the RPD. But by then, the damage had already been done and the team scattered. Chris left for Europe under the guise of a vacation, secretly investigating Umbrella's operations overseas. Barry Burton decided to take leave and moved his family to Canada, knowing that Umbrella wouldn't hesitate to target loved ones. Rebecca Chambers returned to school and dedicated herself to virology. If she couldn't fight on the front lines, she would fight with knowledge, a decision that would later tie into the formation of the BSAA. By September, only Jill Valentine and Brad Vickers remained in Raccoon City, conducting an off-the-record investigation into Umbrella, searching for the mysterious Nest facility and the rumored G virus. They were chasing answers in a city already on the brink of collapse, and soon Raccoon City itself would pay the price. STARS was supposed to be Raccoon City's ultimate line of defense. Handpicked specialists, military veterans, the best of the best. But in the end, they were betrayed by the very system they served. However, even after the unit was disbanded, STARS never truly died because its members carried the fight forward. Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca, they all became the foundation of the global war against bioterrorism. Without STARS, Umbrella's secrets might have stayed buried forever, and the world would have never been warned of the evil lurking in the shadows. Click here to learn about the entire story of Hunk in Resident Evil. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.